Let's do it. Let us get to the news. Here's a look at some of the headlines making the world spin this week. Score win for moral panic in Texas this week after the Lone Star State Supreme Court, which most certainly meets at a Longhorn Steakhouse after Sessions, ruled against 31-year-old Kate Cox in her attempt to be legally allowed to get an abortion that her doctors felt was necessary to secure her survival. On December 7th, District Court Judge Maya Guerra Gamble ruled that Cox could be legally allowed to terminate her pregnancy, one in which her fetus is being diagnosed with trisomy 18, a condition that causes heart defects and organ abnormalities that almost always ends in stillbirth or miscarriages. And yes, those who do manage to be born into this world with what is also known as Edwards syndrome have a less than 10% chance of survival past year one, and it's a year of pain and suffering. Yeehaw, a godly miracle indeed. And then there was the added bonus of Cox's health being in jeopardy because, as stated in her initial lawsuit, continuing the pregnancy puts her at high risk for severe complications, threatening her life and future fertility, including uterine rupture and hysterectomy. But nope. God has willed you to press on and endure this hardship like a good soldier for Christ. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 1. After the district court ruled in her favor, Attorney General Ken Paxton, still facing a federal investigation for securities fraud despite being acquitted in his recent impeachment trial, and who, speaking as a Ken, I can confirm is definitely not Knuff, quickly stepped in and asked the state Supreme Court to overturn the ruling, which they did, though by this point, Kate Cox had left the state to receive the medical care she needed to, live, which had to be a real fun, lighthearted road trip. Hey, you want to stop at that Flying J for some snacks? No, I want to get an abortion so the dying baby inside me doesn't kill me too. The entire ordeal exposes spiritual, stubborn intentions of governing bodies and politicians in states like Texas who clutch their pearls, swear in their Bibles, and scream, "We're pro-life. We must protect the children," while keeping a woman from getting the potentially life-saving medical treatment she needs and wants. And for those in your life who keep claiming these women are harlots with scorpions between their legs that use abortion as slightly inconvenient birth control, Kate Cox is a married mother of two, wants to keep having children, and another thing that would be affected if forced to carry this pregnancy to term. She wants to make babies and raise a beautiful family in your charming state, and the Texas right would rather she go through with this little miracle of birth. And if she and the baby die, then it was God's will they die. It's the 21st century equivalent of trying to drown a woman to prove if she's a witch or not. The cruelty is the point. Here's to some healing and eventual peace to Kate and her family. And here's to Ken Paxton one day getting to hell and muttering to himself, "I've made a huge mistake." Your move, Supreme Court. This after special counsel Jack Smith looked to call their bluff by asking them to rule on the idea that NFT digital trading card salesman Donald Trump should enjoy some nice, warm presidential immunity in his upcoming trial, currently scheduled for March 2024. When the trailer drops for that trial, we'll do a reaction video to it. Smith's gambit is that Trump believes he has special privileges and shouldn't be prosecuted for any crimes committed while in office. And while we're talking about the office of the president, not cutting in front of the omelet bar line at Mar-a-Lago. The issue of presidential immunity might have been something that would always have found its way to the Supreme Court anyways, but Jack Smith said, fuck it. Let's settle this now so I can keep prosecuting this oaf or we watch democracy crumble. If the Supreme Court rules in favor of Trump and the idea that he can't be prosecuted, then the rule of law will vanish faster than hair dye dripping down Rudy Giuliani's face. With three justices on the top court in the land owing their seats to Trump and his minions, and Clarence Thomas most certainly not going to recuse himself from the process, it's a good bet that the Supreme Court sides with Trump, unless they all stop to think about the ramifications as suggested by many, many TikTokers. If Donald Trump can't be prosecuted for high crimes as the top executive in the land, then here goes. Joe Biden can't be prosecuted for any crimes he commits while in office, making any impeachment attempts rather toothless, no matter what your racist uncle says about the so-called Biden crime family. We'll provide any updates on whether democracy dies with thunderous applause. And yes, we'll get to the impeachment news, but the first match on our political wrestling card is Hunter Biden versus the GOP members of the House of Representatives. Biden skipped out on the closed-door deposition session with the House Judiciary Committee after they had subpoenaed him and for their questioning in their impeachment inquiry investigation. Instead of showing up, Hunter Biden held a mock press conference of sorts outside the U.S. Capitol building on Wednesday. The move could bring contempt charges against the first son, but his whole point was that he was willing to testify, but only in a public forum, so the world could see the Republicans' lies and lack of shame and decency in action. His words, I'm not saying Republican politicians have no shame here. Hunter Biden is just speaking the truth. Now, to be clear, Being asked to answer questions in a closed-door session isn't abnormal nor proof of Republican malfeasance. As GOP members have repeatedly squawked this week like a murder of crows fighting over a discarded bag of fast food, Donald Trump Jr. was asked to take a bump of coke and sit in two closed-door sessions before Democratic-led committees. And to be even more clear, there's a lot for Hunter Biden to answer for, and with several indictments hanging over him still. He will. But his move here is one step towards exposing and challenging the Republicans' desire to only kick up enough dust to help their branding and not actually help or lead this country. And that was Hunter's point. Hey, I've done some bad stuff and I'm ready to stand for it, but none of it is worth an impeachment query on my pops, the president. But in our final story this week, that's where we are. Impeachment inquiry time. In a game of, well, you got to do it, so we're going to do it too. The Mike Johnson-led GOP House successfully voted to begin a formal impeachment inquiry in the hopes of finally finding enough evidence to impeach President Joe Biden. A political wet dream the Republicans have been having since Donald Trump got impeached twice. The final tally held to the party lines with a 221 to 212 vote. One of the reasons for the vote is that without a formal inquiry in place, it was difficult to bring people in to answer questions, even if subpoenaed. So instead of having more Hunter Biden press conferences on Washington, D.C. grass patches, even moderate Republicans who have struggled to see the evidence against the president emerge voted for the inquiry. It's almost like a network crime show procedural in which detectives just charge someone for murder in the hopes of finding out who did it. And I'm sure that would only happen on TV. President Biden, who had a busy week going public with the United States having differences with Israel over their approach to eradicating the world of Hamas and warning that their indiscriminate bombings were losing them favor in the world. In other words, hey, everyone's saying you're committing genocide in the name of justice, and I'm starting to think my friends are right. Responded to the inquiry by saying, instead of doing anything to help make Americans' lives better, they are focused on attacking me with lies. Instead of doing their job and the urgent work that needs to be done, they're choosing to waste time on the baseless political stuff that even Republicans in Congress admit is not supported by facts. And look, I think the president is wrong here. Republicans did manage to finally expel George Santos and create an opportunity for everyone to get the most just ironically hilarious cameos in history, not counting any by Jose Canseco. Look, even Matt Gaetz took time off from looking over his shoulder at any ethics investigations creeping up on him like he creeps up on underage girls to say that he doesn't think that House Republicans have enough votes to impeach the president. But yet this new clown show has begun. And if the Republicans' dreams come true, they'll be impeaching the president just in time for the next election. That's the news, Alden. Anything you want to talk about?